Welcome to Afric Vibe News, your front row seat to Africa's real stories, raw energy, and rising voices. From breaking news to cultural beats, we bring you the pulse of the continent, unfiltered. Subscribe now and vibe with the future of African media. The air over Zambia's copper belt is thick with dust and anticipation. In the dead of night, under the glow of headlamps, a convoy of white SUVs winds through a stretch of bushland the size of a small country. Inside, Indian geologists grip folders of freshly drawn maps, their eyes darting between satellite images and the jagged ridges outside the windows. They're not here for tourism, they're here for copper and cobalt metals that power everything from electric cars to missile guidance systems, metals that could decide the future of entire economies. And for the first time, India, not the United States, is at the center of this hunt. What makes this night extraordinary is not just the mission, but the scale. In 2025, Zambia quietly granted India exploration rights across 9,000 square kilometers of land, an expanse nearly 3 times the size of Delhi. For a country like India, long dependent on imports, this was not just another foreign concession, it was a lifeline, because back home, copper production was stagnant. Domestic reserves were drying up, imports were ballooning past 1 million metric tons a year, and cobalt, the irreplaceable ingredient in rechargeable batteries, was almost entirely out of reach. If India couldn't secure new supply lines, its electric vehicle revolution, its renewable energy transition, even its defense industry would choke. That's why these men in the SUVs were here, but what they didn't know was that they weren't alone. Thousands of miles away, in Washington, D.C., another plan was already unfolding. The United States had also set its sights on Zambia's copper. Only weeks before India's geologists touched down, the U.S. had signed off on a $1.4 million grant to fund a feasibility study at the Kazozu mine. It wasn't much compared to China's billions, but it was a signal. Washington wasn't going to let its rivals corner the market on critical minerals. The White House understood what was at stake. Copper is the wiring of the modern world, cobalt the heartbeat of the electric battery. Lose control over these, and you don't just lose profits. You lose leverage in the 21st century. And yet, despite America's head start, it would be India that stole the spotlight. The story of how India began to outmaneuver the United States in Zambia doesn't start in Lusaka's boardrooms or in some high-profile diplomatic summit. It starts in a courtroom. For years, the fate of Konkola copper mines, one of Zambia's largest producers, was locked in a bitter legal fight. At the heart of it was Vedanta Resources, the Indian conglomerate that had invested heavily in Zambia but fell into conflict with the government over unpaid dues and environmental concerns. The mine was seized. The case dragged on. Analysts wrote off Vedanta as finished in Africa. But in early 2025, after marathon negotiations and pressure from multiple sides, Vedanta won back control. Almost immediately, it announced plans to raise $1 billion in debt to revive the mine, with ambitions to triple output within 5 years. Overnight, an Indian firm was back in the game and in a position to dominate. For Washington, this was a shock. American firms had only just begun dipping their toes into Zambian mining, betting on feasibility studies and modest grants. India, by contrast, was suddenly running a billion-dollar play. And Vedanta's revival was only the beginning. New Delhi wasn't content with one mine. It wanted entire concessions, stretching across Zambia's underexplored northwest. It wanted not just the ore, but the right to decide how it was mined, processed, and shipped. And in that ambition lay the real twist. While the U.S. saw Zambia as a way to diversify its supply chains, India saw it as a chance to rewrite its role in global trade altogether. But Zambia is no ordinary battlefield. The copper belt is scarred by a century of extraction, first under colonial rule, then by foreign conglomerates. For decades, profits flowed outward while Zambians themselves remained poor. Towns like Kitwe and Kingala are lined with the remnants of shuttered plants, their smokestacks frozen in time. Generations of miners remember broken promises, poisoned rivers, and wealth that never reached their communities. In early 2025, those fears became reality again when a dam at a Chinese-operated leach plant collapsed, spilling tens of millions of liters of acidic waste into the Kafu River. Fish died, crops wilted, thousands lost their water supply overnight. For Zambians, it was a brutal reminder of what unchecked mining could cost. For India, it was an opening. If it could position itself as the cleaner, more reliable partner, it could win not just leases, but trust. The strategy was subtle but deliberate. India didn't arrive with the swagger of a superpower, it sent geologists, not generals. Technical experts, not flashy investors. It framed its pitch around partnership, training, and shared growth. And behind closed doors, it offered something Zambia desperately needed: investment in value addition. For years, Zambia had exported raw ore while foreign companies pocketed the real profits through smelting and refining abroad, but New Delhi hinted it could help build smelters inside Zambia, or at least channel refined copper through India's own growing industrial hubs. That meant jobs, technology transfer, and more revenue for Lusaka. To a government trying to triple copper output by 2031, those promises carried weight. Still, nothing in Zambia happens in a vacuum. China has been entrenched here for decades, pouring billions into mines, infrastructure, and political relationships. America has leverage through financial aid and diplomatic pressure. For India to carve out space, it needed to do more than promise. It needed to show results. That's why Vedanta's comeback mattered so much. Every ton of copper pulled from Konkola was proof that India wasn't just talking, it was producing. And every new exploration license it won was another piece of leverage in the silent trade revolution taking shape. But the story doesn't stop with mining, because the real battleground is not the pit but the corridor. Whoever controls the routes out of Zambia controls the flow of copper to the world. Here, the US pinned its hopes on the Lobito Corridor, a massive rail project linking Zambia and the Democratic Republic of Congo through Angola to the Atlantic coast. If completed, it would give American and allied companies a direct export line that bypassed Chinese-controlled ports. India, meanwhile, wasn't waiting for railroads. It was exploring partnerships with traders, smelters, and shipping firms to ensure its copper didn't just leave Zambia, but landed directly in Indian factories. And while Washington was still running studies, Indian engineers were already taking soil samples in the field. In Lusaka's government offices, ministers weighed the choices. America promised transparency and finance but demanded influence. China offered scale, but at the cost of sovereignty. India offered partnership but carried the shadow of past disputes. In the end, Zambia's leaders played all sides, granting different concessions to different powers. But behind the balancing act, something profound was happening. For the first time in living memory, Zambia wasn't just a passive resource colony. It was setting terms, trading ownership stakes, even building its own metals trading unit with a Swiss partner. The world as superpowers weren't just competing with each other anymore, they were competing with Zambia itself. And that competition revealed an irony. While Washington's strategists spoke of countering China, it was India, not the US, that was quietly slipping into the space. By reviving Vedanta, securing vast exploration blocks, and negotiating value addition, India was doing what America hadn't managed, turning intent into action. It didn't have to outspend Washington, it just had to move faster, take more risks, and align itself with Zambia's aspirations. For the miners underground, the politics felt distant. Their world was measured in shifts, in the rumble of or trucks, in the dust that clung to their skin after 12 hours below. Yet even they sensed change. New contracts promised training, rumors spread of Indian technicians arriving. Some hoped for better pay, others feared displacement. Along the Kafu River, communities still battled the aftermath of the dam spill, wary of anyone promising prosperity. For them, the revolution was not silent at all. It was lived daily in poisoned water and broken promises. But if Zambia's copper belt has taught the world anything, it's that power lies not in extraction, but in control. Control of concessions, control of corridors, control of refining. India understood this. America understood it too, but came to the table late. And China, the giant already in the room, understood it best of all. The difference now is that Zambia, for the first time, is insisting on a say. As the convoy of Indian geologists pushes deeper into the bush, drills whirring, samples packed into crates for labs in Hyderabad, a larger game is unfolding above them. In Washington, policy analysts debate whether to double down on grants. In Beijing, strategists watch nervously as competitors close in. In Lusaka, ministers balance promises against expectations. And in New Delhi, officials plot how to convert these footholds into a supply chain that runs not through foreign ports but through India itself. This is not a story of sudden victories or dramatic takeovers. It is a slow burn, a silent revolution, fought in contracts, concessions, and quiet handshakes, yet its consequences are anything but silent. The copper buried beneath Zambia's soil will wire the next generation of cities, power grids, and armies. Whoever controls it doesn't just control trade, they control the future. And so, as night falls once more over the copper belt, the stakes remain. Will India's patience and precision cement its place as Africa's unexpected partner? Will America's late push gain ground, or will it be outpaced before it ever begins? Will Zambia finally break free from being a pawn, or will history repeat itself under new names and flags? For now, the answer lies underground, in rocks still waiting to be mined, in contracts still waiting to be signed. But one thing is clear, The silent trade revolution has already begun, and the world is watching.